Bill O'Brien makes a monster hire of a general manager that has all the tools to bring Boston College recruiting to an elite level.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black, Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for Boston College news, analysis, and scoops on your Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is a free Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. On today's show, we have a packed recruiting episode. BC lands a quarterback commit. BC lands a defensive line commit with offers from Alabama and Auburn, and he visited there too. And the biggest news, BC adds a monster addition to their staff as Bill O'Brien starts his offseason. Now, the offseason started on Sunday, and the portal's been quiet. That's a good thing to start the season off. But we knew that Bill O'Brien needed to make changes going into this offseason. When you go 2-10, you cannot sit on that and go into the next year and go, well, I hope things are going to get better, because you could be looking at another rough season if things don't change. Bill O'Brien, he is already making waves. On to Monday afternoon, Matt Zenitz of 247 Sports announced that Bill O'Brien has hired a new general manager, Kenyatta Watson of Auburn. Now, he was the assistant general manager at Auburn. He's worked at Georgia Tech. He's worked at Florida State. This is an enormous get. I cannot undersell how big of a addition this is for Boston College football. This shows that you are very serious about the future of this program, because Kenyatta Watson is one of the most well-respected recruiters out in college football right now. He helped Auburn put together a class that brought in Deuce Knight, one of the best quarterbacks in the class of 2025. He brought in the number 6 transfer portal class last year that included Cam Coleman of Georgia Tech. He was critical in all of their recruiting. And if you talk to any national folks, they say he is the heart and soul of their recruiting over in Auburn. And on top of all of that, he's a Boston College grad. He played for BC. He was a receiver in the 90s for BC and had like a ton of catches and like 700 yards one year. He had a whole bunch of special teams touchdowns. This is a BC guy through and through. So you get an elite recruiter and one that has ties to Boston College. That is a win-win in every sense of the word. This was a slam dunk. Now, this is not meant to, people have asked, okay, I also want to take a step back because I think there's some folks out there that don't even know what the general manager does. So I should probably explain a little bit about that role. So last year, the general manager was Spencer Dickow, who had been working with BC since the Halfley days in different roles. And what the general manager did is basically do a lot of the recruiting, both on the trail for the high school recruits and the transfer portal. They are in charge of all of that. They oversee every piece of that. So the new offers, they're like the lead on everything. Like a coach may be the lead, but they kind of, coordinate everything. So a general manager is a big role. It's newer in college, so maybe you haven't heard of that yet, but it's critical because they are the people that set out, they're watching the tapes. They are the ones making connections with high schools and coaches and the players and their families. They're the ones that start all that for Bill O'Brien. So I have said some things on the show that Bill O'Brien has set up to make a NFL style program, a developmental program. And that's the style he wants to go with. And hey, we'll have to see if that works or not. But I've also said he needs to, one of the pieces that I thought after last year that I think he needed to infuse was more of the college vibe into this, to bring this team, not just into this like level of like, trying to be an NFL team, because that may not resonate with every kid. You need to be able to do what a lot of schools do on the college trail. Kenyatta Watson nails this. Like, this guy, I've talked to Kenyatta a few times. Already, I get the feeling talking to him that he lives and breathe. He's going to live and breathe BC football. He has a swagger, a confidence about him that's going to resonate on the trail. And it did already with a whole bunch of other schools. So I don't see why it wouldn't work with the school he's already, been part of. And he's telling me like, he is so energized that he wants to like get this school up and going and to really re-energize the recruiting here at BC, which was, they're like 48th or 49th now after a few decommitments after a 2-10 season. This style of recruiting has been sorely needed at BC. When you have guys that can go out there and say, I'm an NFL coach and I've been an NFL coach for years and I can show you all the experience I have to help you get to the league. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But adding in the flair of a guy that's like, that is, he has a little bit of swagger to him, that is going to be really confident about the future of BC football, that, has a bit of like, you want to say guys like Fran Brown or Lane Kiffin or those guys that just, want to like really sell the program. I feel that Kenyatta Watson's going to be a home run there. He's going to be able to say to these kids, you're going to be the future of BC. You're going to flip this around, and he's going to be able to do that. Now, the big piece I think a lot of folks are asking, like, and I've seen a bunch of comments on TikTok and Instagram and on some of my posts, is, you could bring in a guy like this, but if he doesn't have the money to spend, what good does it do? Well, everything I've heard is about this rev share. Rev share can go up to $20.5 million. I heard that this year BC will be going to a full rev share. That's, I haven't had that confirmed yet, but hopefully that's the case. And they have their NIL still. You add those two together, and hopefully you have the money for him to do what he needs to do. I imagine, I just use logic here for a second. If you are a up and coming, and Notre Dame wanted Kenyatta Watson last year. There's an article from A to Z Sports, part of the SI network, saying that Notre Dame was close to hiring him as their general manager last year. If Notre Dame thought so highly of him, that proves to you that it's not just bluster, that there's other schools that really do want him. Why would he come to BC if he's not going to have the tools he needs to be successful? That doesn't make any sense. So he had to have been. I imagine Watson knows that he has the resources to go out and do what he has to do. Now, this is not going to make BC into Auburn. It's not going to make them into Florida State. But will they have the tools to compete with their peer programs and maybe do a little bit more than that? I think they will. I'm not sure if Father Zach signed off on this or if this is, the state of the program has anything to do with that. I don't know any of that yet. I don't know. But I do know that BC needed to make a big splash this offseason. And on day one, they already did that. I did not think BC had them in them to bring in a guy like Kenyatta Watson. He's such a big deal. He is so well known in Southern schools. Like schools in Georgia and Florida and that area, that he's going to immediately make a huge impact for BC on the recruiting trail and transfers. Auburn wasn't a great school either. They just fired their head coach, but they bring in SEC level players. I would imagine we might see a few Auburn players here at Boston College too. We need depth players. Would you rather have guys from Auburn or guys from Barton College? That's the difference right there. That's the difference. Now, BC hasn't announced this hiring yet. And I feel for Spencer Dickow, who was, he did a great job when he was here. But I've talked to Kenyatta. I know what's happening. Like you got an Eagle insider. I told you I'm the Eagle insider here. I've talked to him. He's coming. So this is a huge get. And I don't know when he started. I don't know his official start date, but the first commitment that happened over the weekend has his hands. It looks to me like it has his hands all over it. I'll explain what I mean by that in just a moment. The holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sales, it's here, and the deals are huge. I love Omaha Steaks. I got one in a Christmas gift a couple of years ago that had steak, appetizers, sides, and dessert. I can still remember the dessert. It was an apple turnover. It was so good. And it gave me me and my wife had a date night out of it. We ate that, had a movie. It was amazing. It was such a thoughtful gift, so different. And so save big on an unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide, an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sales. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code college at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code college. Terms apply. See site for details. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black of Eagle Insider here. Thank you to all my everydayers, all of you who have made Locked on Boston College an everyday first listen for yourself. Thank you so much. You've helped us grow. We're getting close to 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. Hopefully you have already subscribed there. If you haven't, do that as well. Now, we're talking about Kenyatta Watson. And over the weekend, the first little breadcrumb that maybe he was already on campus came out. Boston College on Sunday landed a commitment from Grayson High School defensive lineman Cam McGee. Now, this is a 6'4" or 6'3", 340-pound defensive tackle. Yes, please. If we watch this defensive line, having a big guy like that sounds great to me. Well, Cam McGee committed to BC, but you got to hear what other schools were interested in him. He took, and this isn't just he got offers, because we know that offers sometimes don't mean anything. He took official visits to Auburn, Alabama, Purdue, and he had offers from Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, Miami, Michigan. I could go on and on and on. A monster offer list. So how does this connect to Kenyatta Watson? Well, Kenyatta Watson worked at Grayson High School, and I'm sure he probably knows the staff there. So this is already paying off dividends. You're getting in a big time defensive tackle that had a big offer list. I know a lot of folks really get hung up on that. And he played at one of the best schools in the country. Grayson High School, we talked about this with Josiah Victor last year when he committed to BC. Grayson High School is probably anywhere in 1 to 3 in terms of schools in the entire country. They pump out tons of NFL level talent. Now, not Josiah Victor, Cameron McGee, you look at his stats, and maybe the reason is he didn't play all that much. Like, he only had 18 tackles, I think like 3 or 4 sacks. But you look at the tools. You looked at he played at a big school, so there's probably talent in front of him too. And to get involved in Grayson and to be able to be successful this time, because Victor, remember, he flipped to NC State, is a big deal for BC. National Signing Day is tomorrow. So I don't see him going somewhere else. He just announced that he's committing today. I mean, on Sunday. I think Watson had his hands on this because this is the type of kid that he's going to bring in. You want BC to be involved with recruits that are targeted throughout the country. Because what's been the biggest knock on Boston College? BC's been able to, you could go up and down the line. Braden Allen, let's look at him for a second, right? This was a wide receiver BC had on campus for an official visit. He had no offers, none. BC did an awesome job of getting him on campus and offering him for an official visit. Then other schools found out who he was, and he went to, I think he's already flipped like 4 times. He started at Tulane, but because BC had no other, I don't know what happened there, but he then ended up at LSU, Oklahoma, I think Texas Tech, and now LSU. So he's at the top school basically for wide receivers. Obviously with the Lane Kiffin stuff, one of the top schools in the country right now. BC has this thing where they are able to identify guys, and then they just, because they're BC, they can't keep them once other bigger schools jump in. I am positing here that Kenyatta Watson is going to help BC win battles. That is huge because that's been the biggest knock on Bill O'Brien and Jeff Hafley too, is that BC, once a school jumps in that shows big interest, that's a bigger school, 6 times out of 10, they're gone. Brady Beckenhuis, gone. You look at what, some of these, Nyquil Hilton, gone. You need to be able to hold on to these recruits when bigger schools start knocking. And when other schools are offering, you want to be able to get your foot in the door too. So that's a big change for me, that you see. He's a 5-star. I'm not five. Yeah, he's not a 5-star. He's a 3-star. Sorry about that. He's a 3-star, and he's only rated an 85. But you look at that offer list and you say, why? I don't get it. Well, you have now a recruiter who has a connection to Grayson High School. You're able to bring him in. This is big. Now, I've loved what BC has focused on this class. Now, I would have loved to have Beckenhuis as part of this, but BC has, I believe, 4 defensive tackles. They have 7 defensive linemen total and 5 offensive linemen, even with losing Beckenhuis. That you have 12 recruits on your lines. You have built depth in this class on the defensive line, both at the edge and defensive edge position, and all throughout the offensive line with interior and tackle position. That is huge. Now, the final things people have been asking, will there be decommitments? You got 24 hours. The one last guy I would watch for is Dejon Green. He's a cornerback from Oklahoma, and honestly, if you lose him, you lose him. You've got plenty of cornerbacks. You got some young guys coming up. You could use that spot in the portal. I think that's fine. He took an official visit to West Virginia. Usually if a recruit like that, if they take an official visit, he's gone. So I would watch for that one. But this isn't about that. This is about the good stuff. And I was very happy with Cam McGee. This was a recruitment that went completely under the radar. And it was when you're a 2-10 team, recruiting is not easy. To go out there and get a guy like this that you just started recruiting and to get him over some other schools. And he was looking around. This wasn't like his recruitment was dead, because I had heard from some of my 247 folks that he was still debating taking some other visits. BC was able to get him not to and stick with their recruitment, their commitment with him. So this was a good get. He's the size 6'4", 330. I'm sure I don't know. I don't know what his size looks like in general. There's 330 good and there's 330 bad. But that's like Vince Wilfork's size. So if it's good, hey, we get a big boy like that you could put in the middle. That's a good thing. That's a good start. Now, he may be a project. He may be a year or 2 away, but you got guys like Sterling Sanders if he can stay healthy. You hopefully you can get a guy like Owen Stodmeyer to come back and add some depth to go along with Chris Marable, who looked pretty good. So there's some hope there in this commitment. Now, to wrap things up, this is another commitment. It's been a busy week. Earlier this weekend on Friday, BC lands a commitment from Anthony Kohler. I'll explain why this is, again, a good one for BC, and I'll explain what the positives of his commitment in just a moment. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. Let's be honest. Getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts with great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. I told you folks, I've used Game Time multiple times. It's on my phone. It's my go-to app for buying seats because it has all the fees included. There's no surprises there. You can use the seat finder to see where you're sitting, and it tells me about price drops. So I'm thinking about going to a game. I'm like, oh, it just took a big price drop. Let me go in the app. Boom. Oh, that's the price I want. I want to go and get those tickets. It's so easy to use. I've used it to get football tickets, Woo Sox tickets, and wrestling tickets. I think you might like it as well. So check that out. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go Game Time. This is Locked On Boston College, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. Thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every single day. And to our players out there, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed everything. And if you have not followed me on social media, check out my TikTok. It's Locked On Boston College. What does Barstool call it? Like emergency meetings or whatever, emergency whatever. I did one on Kenyatta Watson. And I will be doing live things on those, like little 1-minute clips when things happen during the winter and into the summer. So check that out. I think you'll enjoy that. Now, last week before, in between Turkey Day and the season finale, Boston College did make another splash with the addition of Anthony Kohler, the 26 quarterback commit from Indiana. Now, I should also mention that McGee is a 26 commit too. I didn't say that. Kohler, we've been talking about on the show. He took an official visit a couple weeks ago. Jonathan DiBiase, the quarterback's coach, was there to visit him on campus, and he had decommitted from Troy. Now, I want to address this because people continue to bring this up. The Troy piece. Just because a guy committed to a smaller school does not make him less than. Watch his film. He played at one of the best schools in Indiana. He has good mechanics. He's quick. He's explosive. He's a winner. These are all pieces that he has. Just because Troy was the school that had him committed before should not lessen the importance of this commitment. I've talked to Mitch Wolf of Eagle Insider, who does all our film stuff. He compared him to DJ Bordeaux. Mitch is not the kind of guy that glosses over stuff. He tells you exactly what he sees on the film, and he will make sure that it lines up with what he thinks. I mean, make sure he'll make an analysis off of that. Not, you know what I mean? He says, just looking at the film, that Kohler is a better fit than DJ Bordeaux. He's a better fit than Corinne Berry. This is a guy that has skills that will fit very well in Bill O'Brien's offense. He does the quick game well. He has he has the ability to go deep, and he's mobile. So, will he be a guy that you play next year? No. You've got Dylan Larnigan. You've got Shaker Isaac. We'll see how the portal or anything else shakes out. But you got him for the next couple of years. And so, you look at his statistics. What's the big piece that sticks out to me? His completion percentage. This is an accurate passer who makes good decisions. That's what you want. You can train a guy and help with mechanics and fix that kind of stuff. But the stuff up here, the mental piece, that's a part that's harder to teach. Looking for guys that are open. You can teach pieces of that at times, but it's a lot harder if they don't do it well. He does that well. He did a lot of RPO, a lot of quick stuff. That will make him successful in O'Brien's offense. So I like this I like this commitment. And again, he had other offers too. He had Indiana, Maryland, and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was the big one. I think that was kind of behind the scenes, one of the other schools that was really pushing for Kohler. And Vanderbilt's a playoff team right now. They're a team that's like the darling of college football because they've gone from the worst to the best with Diego Piava. And so, Piavia, sorry. And BC, was able to hold on to him. So your quarterback room continues to develop and change. It's been a busy and kind of chaotic quarterback recruiting class because remember, this started off with Corinne Berry, who's now gone, and then it switched to DJ Bordeaux, who's now gone, and now you're on Kohler. And I know folks may think like, is this the third? Have they lost two guys, and this is the third guy on their list? It's hard for me to say. I honestly, I don't know. I've told you that I think what I've seen on tape and what Mitch has seen on tape has said, that this is going to be a guy that could develop into something better. But I get it if you're skeptical. This is Boston College. I get it. But I still think this is a good one for BC. So thank you all for listening. This is Locked On Boston College. My name's AJ Black. On tomorrow's show, BC plays LSU. In basketball, we'll start talking about that. We will get into more news. It's crazy. We'll start looking at maybe names that could pop up in the portal. There's so much to talk about as this season ends and the real craziness begins. It's offseason carousel. We'll talk all about that here on Locked On Boston College. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. You can check me out on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky, along with TikTok. Follow me on Eagle Insider as well. We have some great stuff over there right now. And hopefully you have subscribed and you're here on Locked On BC, your team every day.